of moving through these movable pieces as I did writing it. But of course, the read-alone version doesn't allow you to move things around so freely. So that's not actually the experience that a reader would really have. You can reveal the links by holding down 2 keys. And there you see you can go in any of these different directions, which correspond to these different chunks. Each of them is headed by another image that's the same image from the beginning, remixed. And that's followed by text. And I guess that's, should I stop there? That's the beginning.
Yeah, that's good. That's a good start.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, Aaron?
What we might do is go over that intro thing at the end. We've kind of done that in our rehearsal, just to get
Do the same thing again?
Yeah, just a couple different camera angles, just you opening the seat or looking at the stuff. But that was good.
All right, so I think we're ready to start with the person.
Okay, so let me just be clear again. So I should talk a little bit about what choices I'm making about where to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
In addition to reading from it.
Yes.
Okay. All right, so shall I go? Okay. All right, so we have these 5 paths we could take, and I want them to be pretty evenly weighted for the reader. So a reader could find herself somewhere that would be quite disorienting potentially, and that's part of my plan. But for the purposes of this reading, I'm going to start somewhere that feels like a story. And in fact, I'm going to start with a chunk called Birth. My birth takes place more than once, in the plea of a bygone monster, from a muddy hole by corpse light, under the needle and under the pen. Or it took place not at all. But if I hope to tell a good story, I must leapfrog out of the muddle of my several births, to the day I parted for the last time with the author of my being and set out to write my own destiny. So if you check out the links, you find that you can go many different places from here, actually. So this is already another branch in the road. The plea of a bygone monster takes you to selections from Mary Shelley, in which she discusses the female monster that Frankenstein built at the behest of the male monster and then destroyed, who is the original of my monster. From a muddy hole by corpse light takes you to the graveyard section. Under the needle and under the pen take you to 2 parallel paths in the voice of Mary Shelley. And I think I'm going to quickly hop to Mary Shelley's own words, just to get my monster born. But I'm not going to read all of these out loud, since you've all read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein already. But I will remind you that the fiend said, Frankenstein's monster said, "What I ask of you is reasonable and moderate. I demand a creature of another sex, but as hideous as myself. The gratification is small, but it is all that I can receive, and it shall content me. It is true we shall be monsters, cut off from all the world, but on that account we shall be more attached to one another." And so on. I shall feel the affections of a sensitive being and become linked to the chain of existence and events from which I am now excluded. And now I'm clicking through this section to reach the moment when he thinks better of his creating a female monster and destroys her. And here, my monster interrupts Mary Shelley for the first time with a parenthetical remark. I told her to abort me, raise me from her book. I did not want what he wanted. I laughed when my parts lay scattered on the floor, scattered as the bodies from which I had sprung, discontinuous as I myself rejoiced to be. I danced in front of the disassembly and vertebrae rolled to the four corners of the wood floor. I wrapped my intestines around my neck and wrists and sashayed about, pitched my bladder against the wall. She watched me with half-fearful amusement. She was always proper, but there was a fierce hunger under her stays. My hijinks did not make it through the wrought iron flourishes of her prose, but they can be glimpsed in the paisley of its negative spaces, a hurly-burly of minced flesh and gouts of blood. To be linked to the chain of existence and events, yes, but bound by it, no. I forge my own links. I'm building my own monstrous chain, and as time goes on, perhaps it will begin to resemble, rather, a web. Now we are back to Mary Shelley's voice, and my monster then resumes to say it was a cover-up, a scam, a lie. We celebrated my death with wine and crusty bread at the little table in the garden overlooking the lake where fictitious bubbles rose and burst, my phantasmic epigraphs. I had my privacy, I had my life, and I had Mary. I alone remember the real Mary, her curious mixture of reticence and passion, the part that twisted under me with a dark satisfaction, and the part that wiped her hands afterwards and twitched the curtains open with punitive haste. You can see it in her book, how she embeds her tale in a double thickness of letters and second-hand accounts, as if every precaution were needed to secure the monster behind those locks and screens, or as if she placed a soiled cloth in an envelope and then a reticule, so that it should not graze her fingers, pretending that